Hi cuties! Welcome back to the Royal Diaries, a channel that is focused on fashion entrepreneurship, and just the glam life of fashion that you all want to be a part of. Today's topic, we are going to talk about trends, and if you need to follow trends to be a successful independent or indie, as I like calling it, designer. This topic can come up often because if you are the type of designer that has worked in the corporate world, or even if you just kind of look at fashion and watch trends and you're just thinking, hey, do I need to stay on top of this? Do I need to be ahead of the curve? Can I make my own trends? What am I supposed to be doing? So first and foremost, the major question is, do you need to follow trends as an independent designer? Well, I'm gonna say not necessarily. Okay, end video, done. You got your answer. No, I'm kidding. But you do not need to follow trends as an indie designer to the T, because typically the indie designer is the one that is thinking outside the box, making trends for their niche market, and coming up with their own fashion cycle. So you don't need to follow trends and runway shows and things like that if you are being an independent designer. However, I will say and will add that there are a few trends that you probably should follow just as a general. For example, if you are designing for spring, you probably don't want to make a bunch of heavy coats for spring, just because typically what people buy in spring is not winter or fall clothing. So you do want to stay on the trend of just general what you would wear in those seasons. But for an overall trend, you can think outside the box and make things for your niche and your niche market. I do have another video talking about finding your target market and figuring out who that person or people are. So be sure to check out that other video so you can learn how to do that. Another thing is that a lot of mainstream brands that are the ones following the trends and putting a lot of money into their trend reports, going to these runway shows, looking at other designers, you know, they are looking at independent designers and seeing what they're doing. There are a lot of trend research of people just literally going to Etsy, and you would be surprised how many big companies with great followings and things like that go to, you know, little indie brands or sites that cater to indie brands, sites like Etsy, and find inspiration there. So you don't have to feel like you need to follow exactly what big brands are doing or these couture brands are doing to come up with your collection to be successful. You really don't have to think of it in that type of way. You can just follow what your niche market is, follow what your vision is, and put that out there, because honestly, there's a lot of mainstream brands that are looking for inspiration at these indie brands. So with that being said, just know that you can create who you want to be and figure out who your customer is, and do that with just your own vision. Now, just kind of a little side to that note, because I know some people will think like, oh, well, big brands are looking at indie brands, like da 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 da. There are so many times where you've probably seen in any fashion gossip site or fashion news related site, or even from the brand itself. I love Diet Prada on Instagram. They are a great blog, fashion blog site. I'm not getting paid by them. I just really enjoy their fashion blog. But their blog exposes people and companies that take from independent brands or independent designers or just young artists and things of that nature. So you've probably seen that as well. There's also a bunch of big name companies that have been called out for copying other brands that are independent brands or small brands or on a smaller scale. So I don't need to name on any of them. I'm sure y'all have some in your head already. So that does happen. That does happen often, that independent brands get their ideas taken from them and put on a mainstream site. The great thing is really now is that so many things, since they're on the internet and they're time and dated stamp, then it's really proof that a bigger company took it. Copyright laws and things of that nature can be really difficult to prove that you made something before someone else. They're just really difficult to prove. So a lot of those cases, it's really hard. All these concepts from artists, whether it be art or fashion or music or any of those things, are on the internet and are dated, whether it's on their Instagram, their personal portfolio site, Google. You can backtrack and see when things first got put into Google, so you can really see timelines and things. So then it's also great because independent designers get their name out there. Unfortunately, not in the like best press, but at least people do come to a lot of independent designers like Aid and just say like, hey, support the main designer. This designer ripped off this one, you know. So there is a lot of that, which is really great, and I do enjoy that. So not to say that it happens every time, and not that every time it has a great and happy ending, but there are a lot of times where active stealing that person's design ends up better for the independent designer, because now more people are willing to just pay for the original as opposed to getting the knockoff. There is that, but that does happen. I don't think people should be afraid to put themselves out there, put their art out there, just because there are people that do steal. It's just a general thing that we all have to just know and deal with. Now, if I'm talking about working in the fashion industry, in the corporate end, you will be following trends. If you're designing for a fashion brand, a fashion manufacturer, or anything of the like, you will be following trends, and they will expect you as a designer to stay up on trends. Now, some companies pay for trips where you can go and watch fashion shows and things like that. Other companies just expect you to do it after hours, or that's part of your job, is to constantly be in the know of pop culture, what's going on the runways, what's going on overseas, etc. Like, there are so many stipulations to that. So if you are in a corporate setting, yes, you will be looking at trends, researching trends. Perhaps they have a trend forecasting program or a site that they use that you can use as well. But if you are working on the corporate end, you will be required to follow trends. Now, if you are working at an independent brand, maybe not. But if you are working at an established brand, you will have to follow trends. If that is what their target market is, if that is what their brand is, all of those things, then you will be researching trends. And this is not trends of what's happening now. You will be looking at trends that is happening within the next 3, 6, 8, 10 months to a year. Like, you will be looking at it months ahead, because you have to remember that when things get manufactured, it takes weeks and sometimes months, depending on the type of garment, for it to get manufactured. So you can't just do what's hot now as a big brand, because you're going to be sending, hundreds of units or thousands of units and trying to get that in the store. By the time you get it in the store and commercials to your influencers, print, whatever, it's going to be out of style. When you are in corporate, you have to think about trends in the long term, not just a short term trend. So it just depends on where you'll be working and how you want to work as a designer. If you are an independent designer and you would like to follow the trends, what you can do is watch fashion shows. You do want to watch couture fashion shows, and not just couture. Typically it starts at couture because that's the trickle down with the fashion cycle, which I'll make a whole video about the fashion cycle later. But typically it starts at the top with couture, and then contemporary. There's juniors kind of contemporary, and then there's kind of like a juniors, and then there's like bottom level kind of thing. But I'll kind of explain this in another video and then kind of reference Devil Wears Prada, because they did do it in that movie, so I'll reference that later. But you do want to watch the couture shows. You do want to watch possibly not so much the couture shows, but just other designers, see what they're doing, because you'll start to see a trend on the runway. You either start seeing, for example, you might see structure in the shoulders, and everyone is doing structure in the shoulders, from couture to contemporary designers. That everyone is just doing structure in the shoulders. So you know that the trend will be structure in the shoulders. If you're not able to watch fashion shows, which you should be, because most of them, a lot of them are online, there are other ways that you can look for trends and inspiration to create as well. There is a service called WGSN that will predict colors, silhouettes, prints, things of that nature for you as well. That it's a paid service. You do have to pay for it, but they do all that work for you, so you don't have to look for it. You don't have to watch anything. They just tell you exactly what you need to know. And they tell you months ahead. I think it's by season, if I remember properly. And there's a few other places like that who do the trends for you, so you don't have to worry about it. You can just see what it is and design into it. Like I said, there's plenty of other places that do mood boards for each season. You can look on Pinterest and kind of see, but a lot of people kind of keep that information to themselves, so that they basically want you to pay for all the research they did, which makes sense. So maybe something for spring, summer 2021, which is what we're in right now, you're going to find the mood boards and things for them right now. However, when you needed it was back in fall of 2020, so that you can be able to have your collection made and picked and done so that it can ship by spring 2021. So hopefully that makes sense. So if you want to invest in something like that, you can. There's many resources available on the internet. Also, Pantone picks colors every year of trending colors and a color of the year. Some of their services are free, some of them you have to pay for, but you can also use things like that to help you when you want to pick colors, want to pick prints, things of that nature. There's a lot of resources online that will grant you that information. So that's pretty much it for this video. I hope you found it helpful, knowing whether you need to stay on top of trends and to be a successful designer, or if you can just set the trend yourself. I mean, like I said, it really depends on what your brand and your brand identity is. If you are about staying on top of trends 100%, then you can follow the steps like I have outlined in this video. Or if you want to kind of, you know, do a little of both, like put your own spice on it, but still follow trends somewhat, you can do that as well. You can kind of teeter the line a little bit. So it's up to you. It's up to what works best for you, who your target customer is, or who you're working for. Because if you are working in corporate, pretty much you will be following the trends that are on the runway for next year, for next season, etc., etc. You will be following that. You won't be really creating your own trend working for a company unless that's their style. But typically you'll at least be looking and researching and seeing what other people are doing, who your competitors are. You will be seeing what they are doing so that you can make a unique product to that brand. So just keep that in mind if you are searching for trends or trying to work in the industry. There are going to be some differences, maybe some similarities, but there will be some differences with trying to predict trends or follow them or not follow them, whatever the case may be. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you found it very informative, and be sure to check out my other videos on my channel where I talk about all fashion entrepreneurship, and just the glam life of fashion that you would like to be a part of, okay? So be sure to stay cute and stay unique. Bye, cuties.